We went back to Baku and there was some absolute chaos in Azerbaijan. But did we survive? Let's find out. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of F1 Fantasy Pole Position. It is Tuesday, September 17th. My name is Ewan. On today's episode, we're going to get into a Azerbaijan Grand Prix race review where there was total, absolute chaos in the streets of Baku. Some people survived and did very well, so great job by them. Some people, like the guy on screen right now, did not, and yeah, it hurt quite a bit. But we're going to move on because we are bang smack in the middle of a doubleheader here. Baku was a couple of days ago, and we're just going straight into Singapore. So we can bounce back immediately, lick our wounds, get back on, and a push for a strong finish to the season. Little announcement here is deadline live stream on Saturday for the Singapore Grand Prix. I will be here live at whatever time is 1 hour before qualifying for you. So come and join the madness, see where we're going. There could be lots of kind of mix-ups in the grid here, given Singapore is quite a tricky track for some of these top constructors. But we will break it all down on Saturday, 1 hour before the deadline lock. So come join me on F1 Fantasy Pole Position. Going over to the Azerbaijan Grand Prix highlights here, Piastri with a fantastic overtake on Charles Leclerc going into turn one. I don't think the Monegasque driver really saw that coming because he wasn't really defending it all that well, and Oscar just absolutely sent it. And it was the winning move of the Grand Prix. We kept watching. It was like the commentators were like, okay, if it's under 0.6 seconds coming out of turn 16, 17, then Leclerc has a chance. And he could just not get past Piastri. Excellent defending from the Australian driver. A very well-deserved Grand Prix win. Norris had a terrible Saturday. Got knocked out in Q1 thanks to kind of a weird yellow flag, white flag situation with Esteban Ocon. Then he actually went off the track. So I'm not sure if that lap time would have been deleted. What would have happened there? Oh, well. But he had a fantastic Sunday. It kind of broke a lot of the game with a lot of F1 fantasy managers going with the final fix chip, including myself. It did not work out very well for us, but we got there in the end with some points. There was a lot of headaches. Do you final fix in Charles Leclerc? Do you final fix in Oscar Piastri? But we're going to get to that in the episode. If you can't watch the entire episode, there are timestamps in the description below. So check that out if you just want to watch a couple of minutes, 5 minutes of the episode. Fine by me. But while you're here, just give it a like and a subscribe to the channel. That way you don't miss any of the upcoming videos. Carlos Sainz and Sergio Perez had a huge crash with a couple of laps remaining. Charles Leclerc's tires were starting to go, and Perez was about to pounce on it. Then Leclerc defended, and then Sainz swooped in over Perez, and then they were coming out of turn 2 or 3, and it just kind of, boom, collided. Racing incident, according to the steward, so no further penalties there. Verstappen was lacking in race pace all afternoon, actually got overtaken by Norris. It was kind of like if Verstappen has a great Sunday and Norris can't make it up, that could be championship over. But yeah, Norris ended up actually gaining some points on Verstappen in the championship race. I believe it's down to 59 points now. And then two rookies score points with Franco Colapinto and Ollie Behrman, both getting on the scoreboard in the top 10 after Carlos Sainz and Sergio Perez's crash. Moving over to the facts and stats for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, Piastri, Norris, and Leclerc were our top three. Piastri with 47 points, Norris with 38 points, and Leclerc with 28. Norris's 38 points all came on Sunday, so if you held him without using the final fix chip, you had a fantastic Sunday, especially if you had him on the 2X. Position gained, it was Norris with 11, Hamilton with 10, and Gasly with 6. Overtakes here, Hamilton 10, Behrman 6, Norris, Gasly, and Hulkenberg with 5. And then the fastest pit stop, Sauber with 10. That is a sentence I did not think I would be saying at the beginning of the season, considering they were taking a minute-long pit stop in the second or third race of the season. McLaren with 5 and Mercedes with 3. Going over here to the optimal teams, courtesy of F1 Fantasy Tools. So at $132 million budget, you would have had McLaren, Mercedes, Piastri with the 2 times, Norris, Alonso, Albon, and Colapinto. That was 130.4 million, 317 points. So great job by y'all if you came anywhere close to that. Then to get anywhere out of Piastri with the 2X and Norris as your second premium driver, you have to drop all the way down to 120 million. This lineup costs 119.3 million with Mercedes, McLaren as your constructors, Piastri with the 2X, Leclerc, Albon, Colapinto, and Zhou Guanyu. That would have gotten you 300 points. And no Piastri lineup would have been McLaren and Mercedes, Norris with the 2X, then Leclerc, Alonso, Albon, Colapinto would have cost 131.1 million, 289 points. And then if you had Ferrari as your constructor, which a lot of us did, it was McLaren, Ferrari, Piastri, Norris, Alonso, Albon, and Colapinto. That was 131.3 million, 286 points. So pretty pricey lineups this week to kind of get some of the optimal teams. McLaren, Mercedes, Piastri, Leclerc, Albon, Colapinto, Zhou Guanyu, that 120 million lineup. There are probably some lineups there that came like real close to that as well. So great job by then. Someone was Daniel Palencia, had 301 points. So great job by him as he responded to my tweet on X at F1U and FPL, where you can follow me over there. So that's where I kind of tweet out my F1 fantasy and FPL thoughts as the week is kind of going along. Going over to driver of the day, this papaya rules. See what I did there? I thought it was pretty clever. Second win of the season for Oscar Piastri. Most F1 fantasy points this season. Actually, the second most of his career after Qatar. Last year, I think he had 56 points, but that was a sprint race. Second driver of the day award in 2024 as well. Fantastic drive from the Australian. Qualified second, 47 fantasy points. Finished first, one position gain, 2 overtakes. Just... yeah, he even got a little bit of help from Lando Norris, team game when Perez pitted. It was going to be super close if Oscar was going to come out ahead of him in the pits, and Lando held him up just enough for Piastri to get out in front and just kind of be able to make that move on Charles Leclerc. So great job by McLaren. It wasn't really the way that the papaya rules were supposed to go, or backing Lando was supposed to come out, but we'll see what happens this weekend in Singapore. Going over to my team review here real quick. 203 points, went down 2,400 spots. So that's probably the biggest drop I've had this season. I'm outside the top 10K for the first time in a while, and that stings a little bit. Budget gain went up 1.7 million. My transfers were Pierre Gasly to Valtteri Bottas and Mercedes to Ferrari, which was looking pretty hunky-dory until the 2 laps to go there. So not a great job by me. And then the Norris to Leclerc final fix transfer was not good. And in total, I lost 46 points if I just kept my squad as is on about Saturday at 1 or 3:30 local time or whatever. I was in Baku for the qualifying day. Lots of fun. First time experiencing F1 in person. I'm going to do like a little bit of like what my experience at the F1 track was like video, maybe on Friday, just a 10-minute video, no F1 fantasy related. But yeah, just giving my kind of review of my first time at an F1 race. Yeah, so not great. Used a chip as well. So I'm down to 2 chips now with the extra DRS and the autopilot. And yeah, it was a little bit of a fiasco if you use the final fix. So here are the 4 drivers that when I was twirling around on Twitter on Saturday evening, these were kind of the discussions going around about who we should replace, who we should not replace, all that fun stuff. So it was Norris, Leclerc, Piastri, and Hamilton, because Hamilton took a engine penalty and was starting from the pit lane. So there were some murmurings about whether you should final fix in Hamilton. I think that was mostly for lineups that maybe already had like that went like Leclerc and Leclerc and Piastri instead of Norris and Leclerc, Norris and Piastri, that kind of thing. So there wasn't a ton of people I saw that went with Lewis Hamilton. But in the first column here, I've got their Saturday points. Second column is their Sunday points, and then the difference to Norris on Sunday. So on Saturday, Norris scored 10, Norris scored 0, Leclerc scored 10, Piastri scored 9, and Hamilton scored 4. Then on Sunday, Norris had 38, Leclerc had 18, Piastri had 38, and Hamilton had 22. So for the difference on Sunday between Norris and Leclerc, you lost 20 points if you final fixed in Norris to Leclerc, or Leclerc to from Norris to Leclerc. You didn't lose any points if you went from Norris to Piastri, so that was fine. And you lost 16 points here if you went from Norris to Lewis Hamilton. I wouldn't have suggested going from Norris to Hamilton with a final fix anyway, because Norris was also starting so far back. So there wasn't really that much of like a change, a delta, I guess is what you would call it, between Norris and Hamilton's prospects. It didn't really work out for Lewis all that well either. But yeah, Norris with an insane recovery drive on Sunday. I really was on the fence. And then I was doing some research thanks to F1 Fantasy Tools website. I was just looking at overtakes in Baku, and it was like there was nothing there the last two seasons. It was third. It had the third fewest overtakes per driver over the last two seasons in F1 Fantasy. And I was like, okay, like, what am I going to do here? Am I going to feel like a bigger idiot if it's Sunday afternoon and I'm just watching Lando kind of toil around in the back, in the midfield, in the middle of a DRS train, just kind of like thinking back to what happened in Spa with Max, where we were like, okay, Max got a new engine, going to be a rocket ship around Spa. And it was just like locked in a DRS tray. I was like, man, that really sucks. So I really didn't want to have that feeling on a Sunday afternoon either. And like just kind of hoping and praying for a insane recovery drive from Lando Norris. So that happened. So if you did hold Norris, like great job by you. Like you kind of just believed that it would happen. So I guess you were kind of thinking about the positions gain and overtake points. But for me, in my thinking, my process was just going to Leclerc. He's on pole. He's really good around Baku. Yeah, and it was, I still think the process was correct. It's just the results. Once again, this season in F1 Fantasy, it was kind of a good process, bad outcome result, unfortunately. And I feel like that's happened to me a couple of times, but I know it's happened to a lot of other managers a little bit more often than that. So thoughts out to the rest of y'all that went with the final fix like I did. It didn't really work out unless you went to Piastri, which was a little bit of a bold call. I did do that on my T3 team. So yeah, it was just kind of a frustrating afternoon, especially when you thought that like Leclerc was going to be able to pip him. And it was really going to come down to who won that race for driver of the day between Piastri and Leclerc. It was super close. Lando nailed that fastest lap by about a second and a half or something when he put on the mediums to catch up to Max at the end of the race. And yeah, it was a little bit of a frustrating Sunday afternoon, especially when Sainz and Perez crashed. That kind of just put the nail in the coffin, because then the people that held Mercedes also got an extra boost as well over Ferrari. But Ferrari should be fine for Singapore. When I brought them in, it wasn't just for a 1 week punt around Baku. It was to kind of have them for Singapore as well. Going over here to something that developed over the week while I was on vacation. I recorded all my videos like really early before the race week in Baku. So this kind of was developing over the week. F1 Fantasy Hub Rob, as a lot of you probably know him, had an interview with Motorsport. So great job by him. Shout out to Rob. And they were just kind of saying that F1 was going to come out and make or inactive drivers were going to get negative 25 on the weekend. So that was going to include Logan Sargent, because a lot of us had held him for that race, and also Kevin Magnussen, who was going to be inactive because of his race ban after accumulating 12 penalty points in a calendar year, and he was going to be replaced by Ollie Behrman. So I had Logan Sargent in my T2 team, so I was like, that's just kind of my test team. So I figured, let's just see what happens. I put the no negative on because I wanted to see if the game was going to overrule or override kind of the no negative chip, to just be like, no, you can't get away with that. You can't use the no negative to get away with inactive driver kind of thing. However, it worked. And yeah, Logan Sargent got me 0 points. He still fell 0.2 in price. And F1, if you go onto F1 Fantasy Tools, I think the guys over there are still working on how to kind of get that into their equation, because it's like, yeah, look, like I think it says like Magnussen has fallen 0.2, and then there's this weird thing with Ollie Behrman that we're about to get into as well. But just if you were wondering, like, could I have used the no negative chip to avoid the inactive penalties? You could have, and it worked out okay. Another thing was, like, if you use the no negative chip, or if you like use the autopilot chip, the thing was you didn't even have a choice about the final fix chip because you can only use one chip a weekend in F1 Fantasy. So the decision was almost taken out your hands. So the no negative was probably the best chip to play this weekend, just with a couple of DNFs in the C tier with Yuki Tsunoda, Lance Stroll, Perez, and Sainz as well. And then, the no negative just took that decision for even playing the final fix out of your hands. So this is my T2 team. This is actually the highest scoring team out of all three of my teams this week. It was 258 points that had George, Alex, Lando with the 2 times, Logan, Franco, Colapinto, McLaren, and Ferrari. Saved me a bunch of points with the Carlos Sainz DNF and the Logan Sargent inactive chip. Going over here to the price change headlines as well. Leclerc and Piastri will become tier A assets now. They will rise 0.1 and 0.2 increments if they have good enough races. I don't think that takes them out of the running in our F1 fantasy teams, especially with kind of just how volatile Mercedes have been recently. I still think George Russell is a great asset. Not so sure about Lewis Hamilton. But Sergio Perez, Carlos Sainz, Lewis Hamilton, those are the next 3 closest to coming up to the tier A assets. However, if you are looking to budget build, I don't think there's much of a difference anymore between Lando and Oscar. I still think McLaren are going to prioritize Lando Norris with the championship coming down to it. There's 7 races left before the end of the season. Lando's down 59 points. So McLaren is now leading the constructor standings as well. So I would expect them to kind of run away with that, with just how strong Norris and Piastri are looking. But if you're looking for budget drivers, you may have to drop down from Piastri and Leclerc to like Sainz, Russell, Hamilton, Perez, if that's kind of what you're looking at. However, we're getting to the business end of the season now, and it's just kind of about scoring points. 5 tier C drivers will rise 0.5 million. That's Albon, Colapinto, Zhou Guanyu, Esteban Ocon, and Nico Hulkenberg. And there was a big swing between the Sauber drivers as Zhou Guanyu went up 0.5 and Valtteri Bottas actually fell 0.1. So I think there was Zhou Guanyu was starting from the back, took some engine penalties, was all the way at the back of the grid. So a lot of people went with him. Great call by y'all. And then Stroll remains in tier C because he is now 14.5 million heading into Singapore. But Aston Martin looks a little bit lost. Fernando Alonso had an okay weekend. I think he finished 6th after the crashes and stuff, but Lance Stroll was pretty lost, DNF'd this weekend as well. I was kind of touting him in green flag, yellow flag, red flag earlier in the week, but I'm not sure if I would go there. I guess that would still be a budget building option, but I'm not entirely sure. He crashed in Singapore qualifying last year, and I'm pretty sure he didn't even start the race due to the injuries he picked up there. There was a weird situation in F1 Fantasy that happened after the prices were finalized here. So Adam from F1 Fantasy HQ said, "Happy Monday to the 1% of teams that ran Ollie Behrman and woke up to this nightmare where Ollie Behrman fell 1.7 million." And I think this is just a weird developer thing where like he scored enough points as Kevin Magnussen's replacement to go up 0.5 million. However, when they put Ollie Behrman back in the game, they priced him at 15 million because that's where he was after the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix when he was with Ferrari. So I think it was just a terrible mix-up. F1 Fantasy Tools over here says, Behrman shows a 1.7 F1 Fantasy budget decrease, which is a mistake. Our hypothesis, Behrman's never correctly got the 15 million price tag behind the scenes, but instead kept Magnussen's price of 12.8 million. So instead of 15 million plus 0.1 for Baku, B tier asset, he got 12.8 million plus 0.5 as a C tier asset. I'm not entirely sure what the game is going to do about this. If you ran Behrman this weekend, I think that was a little bit of a mistake just because he was a B tier asset and he was in a Haas, he wasn't in a Ferrari. And I'm not entirely sure. I hope they fix this for anyone that did, for the 1% of managers that ran Ollie Behrman this weekend. Let me know in the comments below if that was one of you. But in general, just a weird thing that came up after the points were finalized in F1 Fantasy. Going over here to the league updates, season top 5. We've got Leapers 1 still at the top, 4176, Master of Signs, Ricardo. Kevin Raceday has climbed up into the top 4, and then Control F1 here cracks the top 5. Over on the Azerbaijan top 5, Benoto Steiner Vineyards, great name, 353 with the Limitless chip. Team Sir Lewis, Smooth Operations, and then a 4-way tie for 4th with I'm Stupid, Charles Leclerc, Rock Place, Max, Do, and Lando with 7 exclamation points because I counted that out with 314 points. However, shout out to Rock Place because they were the only one in this race here in the top 5 or top 7 or whatever you want to call it, who did not use a chip, and they still scored 314 points. So great job by you, Rock Place. Let me know in the comments below if you are watching. And yeah, just great job there. Going over to the upcoming races, we got Singapore this weekend. Then we've got a pretty significant break in F1, almost like another mini summer break, like a fall break, before we've got Austin in October, and then Mexico as we start back-to-back triple headers, which is going to be absolute madness. So there's going to be a ton of F1 fantasy content coming out at the back half or the back 6 races of the season. So make sure you like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And then during that fall break, there'll be some content coming out. Going to talk to some people, see what's up around the F1 fantasy world. Upcoming episodes here, green flag, yellow flag, red flag will come out tomorrow. Then Grand Prix preview and team selection will come out Thursday. And the deadline live stream is on Saturday. So yeah, it was kind of a crazy week in F1 fantasy with just the final fix chaos, Lando, just inactive drivers, Ollie Behrman coming in, like all this stuff. It was a crazy weekend, but it was a lot of fun. Hopefully you guys did quite well. Let me know in the comments below. I'll be back tomorrow with green flag, yellow flag, red flag. If you're watching this on Tuesday, drop a driver that you want me to kind of go over in the comments below, and I will fit them into the show. But it's good to be back making content after being off last week. Still put out a bunch of episodes, but yeah, it was all pre-recorded. So I'll be back kind of just breaking news, reacting as it comes out this week. But once again, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, and I will talk to you next time.